The USS Jenolan was reported missing 75 years ago. Starfleet captains are like children and never get drunk unless you're willing to pay for it the next day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
You see, Sirach, when people get drunk, oftentimes, we'll talk about it later. My name is Ryan T. Huss. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6, Episode 4, entitled Relics, written by Ronald D. Moore, directed by Alexander Singer. This was October 10th, 1992. Where were you? Also, I believe this episode was sponsored by one of our good buddies, and yes, it is, all the way out in Austria, Robert Kaiser, our good buddy Robert Kaiser out in Austria, never misses a show. Thank you so much for sponsoring this one. Pretty good choice. How you doing today, Sirach?
I'm doing great. I enjoyed this episode, so I'm doing great. Good spirits, laddie.
Yeah, this is one of the episodes when I look ahead that I circle and go, "Ooh, I can't wait to see this one with Sirach. I want to know what his reaction is." And I myself have not seen it I haven't seen most of these in 20 years. But you have not seen these in ever years, in no years ever. So I'd love to know what you thought when you first saw Scotty pop up. Hopefully the thumbnail to the episode didn't ruin it. Because I saw when I hit it on Paramount Plus, there was Scotty right there. I was like, oh no, that's ruining it for Sirach.
No, good thing I didn't pay attention.
Good.
I didn't expect anything. Actually, it opened with the crew. I detected transport ship, and I was like, another transport ship. I was like, that's the intro to so many episodes. We've detected a transport ship or some ship. And I'm like, what's this one gonna be about?
Yeah, same ship, different day, right?
Same ship, exactly. And so I thought, okay, is this going to be an episode that is a recycle kind of mix match of several different episodes, taking the beginning of this and switching it with that and, kind of a Frankenstein episode. But no, it wasn't. Actually, it was a really interesting episode because as soon as I did see Scotty, I thought, wait a minute, this is cool. It made me think about the timelines. I was like, do their timelines overlap? And and then I was thinking, oh wow, this is going to be so great to see Scotty basically be on the Enterprise and watch his reaction like a kid in the candy store, like about all of the upgrades and where time has gone. So yeah, I thought that was a real special treat for me. As soon as I saw Scotty, I was like, yeah, WTF, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool because everybody loves Scotty, right? How can you not?
Yeah.
And we saw Bones in the first episode, but then nobody since then, or none of the original series, I should say. Well, no, actually, Spock. That's right. I was trying to remember. I was like, wait, I feel like we did. So we saw
Spock.
We've seen Bones, we've seen Spock, and now we've seen Scotty. That's 3 out of the 7 leads. It's really, number 2, 3, and 4 of the leads outside of Kirk on this series. So
when did we see Bones? I don't remember the
first episode. First episode, and he was all made up to look older than he was. And he was like, treat this ship well. And then he met Data. He's like, I don't see no pointy ears on you, boy, but you sound like a Vulcan to Data. But if you look, this is like in the late 80s and early 90s, and even then Star Trek was paying homage to previous series, and so right now we've got a bunch of new shows that have been coming out the last 10 years, and they're paying homage to the previous series,
which I love.
And you see that this is just the Star Trek way. This has been going on since 1987, where they're just bringing the people back. We had why can't I remember the title? The Trials and Tribulations, right? On Deep Space Nine, where they did something similar. They go back on this one. We go back to the original Enterprise. I mean, and it's beautiful. We love it, right?
Well, what I really love about it is that it allows you as the viewer to, believe that these characters go on to live their lives past the show. And when you bring them back, then you say, oh, it reminds you that the universes are intertwined and that, the foundation that had been laid beforehand is recognized by the predecessor. And so I think those are one of the great elements about seeing that. Um, yeah, I mean, these guys paved the way. They were the pioneers in this particular space. No pun intended, but they they paved the way for us, and I think it's fitting to honor them and to pay homage and to bring them back. I mean, one of the biggest things I was excited about watching this episode was the prospects of seeing Geordi
Yes.
and Scotty just go back and forth, right?
Me too.
So I was like, oh my God, this is going to be
Yeah.
like, engineer heaven right here, and it was, and it was. So they delivered on that with this episode.
Yeah, it was kind of like the biggest thing. I remember that too when I first watched it. That was the big thing. I'm like, oh my God, I want to see Geordi and Scotty hanging out. Geordi, stop being mean to him.
Yeah, then he started being mean to him, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
But it was so funny at the same time too, because Scotty's just like, "Hi, lad, can I tell you a story?" Everybody's like, "All right, Gramps, like we're actually at work right now. We don't have time for your stories are great. They're great. They're great." But like,
but at 10 forward later after
yeah, please. When we say, "Hey, tell me that story about," but other than that, we're working.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. In our mind as the audience, these guys are legendary, right? So, we've heard about their legend. Beam me up, Scotty is just a phrase that is lasted throughout the ages, and it's part of the popular culture. And so, and there has been acknowledgement of the greatness of these characters within universe when we talk about Spock and Kirk and the legend that follows them throughout the series and throughout the shows, the various iterations, because we're like, oh, that's the Kirk, Kirk did this, the legend of whatever he accomplished during his the Kobayashi Maru and all of these things, and you have Spock and his legend, and how he has his intellect and his Vulcan rationale and mind and mind melding and all of these things. And so I guess I assumed that LaForge also studied Montgomery Scott's work as a young cadet in Starfleet, and in my own estimation, thought maybe he would have this kind of reverence for him in the way that they have for Kirk, for example. But it seemed and it appeared to me that putting on a pedestal of Scotty wasn't there for LaForge. He was just like, yeah, this guy's an engineer. I know of him a little bit, but I don't think of him as like, the god of engineers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of times in Star Trek, they'll do the opposite, where they're like, oh my God, you mean Dr. Smith? Only the highest rated doctor at the conference of Genoa. And people are like, okay, well, I guess this guy's important. I've read all of your books, even the one with the star. Oh, even twice already I read, But this one,
and
they've
done that with Dr. Noonien Singh. Remember?
Yes.
They do that with him.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, Dr.
Soon, yeah.
Soon, right? And so, yeah.
So that's the thing with Star Trek usually, and in this case, they kind of did the opposite. I mean, they didn't really treat him poorly, but they're just like, hey, we're busy. And it is true, we're only human. We do that sometimes where we say like, hey, I'm busy right now. When you're busy or you're focused, you can get a little bit more curt or abrupt. But really what they should have done if Geordi was busy is just to say, hey, go talk to Data. Because first of all, while Data's working, he can multitask. He's an android, so he could talk to him and work. But also in his off hours, Data could listen to his stories all day long. He could just be like, "Oh, sure, that's very interesting. Actually, I did know that because blah 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 blah." And he one ups him, and he's the perfect chaperone because he can babysit people that want to talk. As you'll see later in an episode called Starship Mine. Starship,
Well,
I believe it's season 7.
he's not the only one actually, and their other two were underutilized as well. The other person is
Guinan.
Guinan,
Mm-hmm.
who's not in this episode.
And Troy, actually. Yeah, I bet that's where
and Troy.
You're so right.
And Troy, like Troy came at the end, basically just said goodbye to him, and I didn't see her at all. But before that,
Me neither.
Maybe you could correct me, but I just saw her saying goodbye to him when he was leaving. But I was thinking, what the hell do you do all day? Isn't your job sitting and listening to people? Like, isn't he the perfect candidate? He's lost 75 years of life. Wouldn't you want to catch him up and be, and walk him through the therapy of what it takes to overcome those?
And how are you feeling, Captain? Are you feeling all right with all this?
Yes.
You're right. You are right there.
I'm sorry. That's literally part of the protocol. Like, not only would you make him see Dr. Crusher to see if he had a physical, any ailments physically, because there's, do you check out? We run the diagnostics, everything checks out, you're good. Dr. Crusher approves. And now we're going to send you to our psychologist, who's going to give you some other tools to deal with your emotional distress of having lost out on this time period of being trapped in a buffer. I don't know what that feels like, but maybe
tingly. Maybe tingly.
Yeah. Would you like to explain? And so I don't know. There could have been they underutilized that opportunity, obviously, to get this story across, which is great because I got what I wanted, which is engineer talk.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have other options to have somebody talk to them.
Now, I kind of want to give you my butt right now.
Okay. Okay.
Because I have a butt to give you here. And I wasn't sure whether to save my butt for later or whether to give it to you now, but I think we'll give it to you now on the talk of engineering talk. Here it comes. I love James Doohan. I love Scotty. I love this episode. I think it was so wonderful. And I'll talk throughout this entire review about how wonderful it made me feel and the beautiful moments between him and Geordi and him and Picard and how sweet they were. But when he first comes on the Enterprise and is walking with Geordi and they're going technobabble, that dude is reading off of cue cards hardcore. Big time. He was reading. Yeah. He was reading and he was reading. And, I'm fine with it. I'm like, well, yeah, listen to the line. We can't all be LeVar Burton, dude. Like, I don't fault him at all. But what I am saying is I definitely caught him reading. Like, he was like when he's walking in, because he had a mouthful of lines to say to introduce us to the situation, right? When it's like the walk and talk. And clearly somebody's walking kind of next to the camera holding the lights like this, because instead of looking at Geordi or where he's going, he's watching these things, and then he delivers some lines parts comfortably and other lines he's kind of focusing and, like any politician that we've seen, And then my next thought was when I caught him doing that, and I'm such a jerk because I rewound it to watch it like 3 times to make sure that I was like, all right, yeah. And everybody at home, please feel free to check me on this. There's no way you'll watch that and think, okay, you'll definitely agree. But then I thought, if you've ever, been in a scene with somebody that can't get their lines straight, or, well, I know you have, we've definitely touched on that. But when somebody is messing up their lines, it makes it very easy for you then to mess up your lines. Somehow it kind of gets in your head. And I've been there before where somebody has like complicated lines and you've got yours down, but if they're messing theirs up, it kind of gets in your head and you start messing up yours possibly. You know, it makes you susceptible to that. So when he did that, my first thought was, oh no, don't mess up Jordy now. And Jordy just knocked his out of the park like he always does. And he had this techno babble and he still slayed it. I was like,
with his
pros,
eyes closed,
yeah,
basically. By the
pros
way,
pro right there, man. Yep.
Yeah, the guy's got his, he's got his eyes behind his back. It's amazing what LeVar Burton is able to do.
Yeah.
I have to, give him credit. And at the same time, with all due respect to Mr. Doohan, when you get up there in age,
Exactly.
as he is at this particular moment, he's on the upside of age, and your memory is not as sharp, and your ability to retain stuff is not there for whatever reason, and we all hope to get to that point where we're there and we can forget things ourselves. But so that I've experienced actors reading from cards mainly and primarily on the basis of age.
That's what it would seem like, yeah.
Yeah,
and it's forgivable.
So every time I've seen somebody using cards, it was an older gentleman who just had been in the business for years. And I guess they're just like, you know what? Why am I going to make this harder? Like, it's like trying to do math when you can use a calculator. It's
well, also, it's pragmatic. Sometimes you just got to get through the scene.
Well, you got to get to the scene.
We could be here all night, or we could just knock this out.
And it's a walk and talk, which is also another challenge for older actors sometimes, because their movement is not the same. Hitting the marks is also on their mind, so they're like, "Oh, you got to stop on this mark, and we need you to face this light, and this and that." And you have to, and so they're preoccupied with those other cues that they have to take for the camera, and sometimes it's just and then the age factor. Like I said, the majority, if not 100% of the people that I've seen use cue cards were older people, and so it's a forgivable thing for me. I saw it too, but I wasn't going to fault him. Actually, I thought he did a pretty good job of delivering the lines while reading,
because also
that itself is an art.
Also, not only the age thing, which of course makes it to where, like, not only is it forgivable, it's almost expected, but also those were some pretty crazy lines that he did not have to deliver in the original series. Did not have that. Original series was like, "That's all she's got, Captain," or "We can't do that," or "Those people are purple." Like, those were the lines.
Exactly. Which are a lot easier to remember than the kind of technobabble that we've seen LeVar Burton have to memorize. It's just the fact that he's the best at it. But yeah, I thought it was great to see him, like, as soon as he got off the as soon as he got beamed on board the new Enterprise, he's like, what did he say? "You've changed the resonator array." Like, that was right away.
No. It's like, all right, Gramps, take a step back for just a second. He's like, "Hey, that's what I do." You know what I just realized? That's 2 out of the first 4 season 6 episodes were basically about, transporter stuff, right? He trapped himself in a transporter to save himself and Franklin, who couldn't make it. And 2 episodes ago, we had Barclay saving people that were also trapped in a transporter.
Yeah.
Funny. I wonder why they didn't space those out a bit.
Yeah, that's weird, because you would think that, because I was thinking, when did this idea actually start? Because we did see the Barclay episode, right? But I thought we've seen that before, where transporter people were in the buffer somehow, some way before. I wonder where it started, like the exact episode that
Yeah.
first talked about somebody being stored in the transporter buffer, or you know what I mean, for
Yeah.
any
Well,
extended period of time.
will definitely be the next generation. Well, no, might have been original series. There are certainly times where it's like, oh, we're losing somebody or somebody's trapped in there for a few seconds. We're watching, they're trying to get them or it's slowed down, you know. So they definitely tinker with it a lot. Yeah, so it's got to be as early as the original series doing things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transporter and the holodeck, they they create stories. You know what I mean? Like you could write stories about holodeck and transporter forever because it's like it's theoretical. You know, like okay, well, I'll believe you. Okay, sure, you could.
Yeah.
Barkley will grab giant worms that turn out to be humans in the transporter. All right, I'll go with you on that one. You know,
Yeah. Now, were they saying that 75 years passed?
yes,
Okay, that's the part I also didn't really quite understand.
he was
Uh,
frozen. Like it didn't feel like 75 years to him. I don't think
yeah, but then how is Spock in these episodes?
he's just
Because he
really
didn't get.
because Vulcans live up to 300 years. That's why.
Okay, so he was
That's
75 years older.
yes.
This Spock.
Yeah. Oh, and
Okay.
actually, that's great news because I was kind of sad because I'm thinking, oh, Scotty is here, but all of his friends are gone, but not Spock. So that's great to know that somewhere out there, beneath the pale moonlight, no, it's
Yeah.
a song.
Right.
Scotty can fly his shuttle to Romulus and go find Spock, and they can have
Yeah.
a drink together. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
That would be cool.
we do have to jump to our break real quick, but I do want to tease in the next segment. We have some
Ooh.
crazy trivia, like something that I'd never heard of, and most people I know had never heard of it, but it was found deeps in the darkness of the interwebs. There's a crazy story about Jimmy Doohan and possibly being in other Star Trek series. So stick around, everybody. We will be right back on the seventh rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello. Hello.
All right. It is time for the trivioids of the week. Here come the trivioids. The USS Jenolan was reported missing 75 years ago. The Enterprise encounters an object 200 million kilometers in diameter. Could someone survive inside a transporter buffer for 75 years? I don't know why I added a question in there. Scotty and Franklin went into the transporter together. Franklin's pattern is degraded 53%. The doctors are a fair sight prettier on the Enterprise D than his old ship. Calm down, Scotty. Scotty goes to engineering to help, not for a tour. Scotty was a Starfleet engineer for 52 years. Scotty reminds us that you cannot change the laws of physics. That's his old catchphrase. Starfleet captains are like children. Scotty takes his scotch neat. Never get drunk unless you're willing to pay for it the next day. And the Norpin colony is for old men to retire. All right. So I kind of had that look of reading too myself, so I can't throw stones. But so here's the thing. Here's something that our good buddy Dr. Anne Marie, found on Memory Alpha. Here's the quote. Following the highly rated appearance of Doohan as Scott in Relics, it was later reported that he had been urging Paramount to add him to the cast of Deep Space Nine. Because this is right when Deep Space Nine was starting to shoot. Because it premiered in early 93. So they either was starting to shoot or they're certainly in pre-production. And James Doohan was urging them to add him to Deep Space Nine. And my question to you is, Sirach, your thoughts?
Well, we could have incorporated him on the show. Absolutely. I think that would have been logical to put him with O'Brien, and I could have seen a battle of the accents go on between
I
the
thought
two
that's
of
the
them.
first thing I thought too was the Scottish and the Irish.
Yeah, and that would be a make for some good television. The back and forth between them. I don't know if he would have a more like a mentorship type of role in that relationship, or if they would be butting heads,
Hmm.
much like we saw Jordy in the beginning. So I don't know, but I do think it could work. Um, he's just a legend in so many ways, and I didn't get a chance to meet him, so I don't know what his personality was like off camera,
Hmm.
but he seems to be a jolly fellow. He
He
seems
was
to
a war
be.
hero, that's for sure.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
Yeah, he was in World War II. I believe it was. Was it World War II or Korea? I guess I need to get my information straight, but I
Nice.
think it was World War II. And he was shot like something crazy, like 4 or 5 times, and survived. And he's actually missing a finger that he's always hiding. You never really notice it, but it's a finger on one of his hands. And yeah, he's
Wow.
a total war hero. I'll Google it and confirm the information, but he did some amazing stuff in his youth. Now, I think that the way that Deep Space Nine was set up was like it's ripe for almost any kind of storyline you want to bring in because they're a space station. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
any traveler or wanderer or war or race or whatever. So the answer for Scotty could have been just as easy as he's flying his shuttle that they let him use, and he stops at Deep Space Nine, and he's part of an episode, and he goes, you know what? I think I'm gonna like it here. This seems like just my speed, like I'm not ready to fully like retire, but you know, I still want to adventure. I want a little bit of adventure and see what's going on. You could see he might enlist as part of the part of the crew, or he might just be a guy that hangs out at the bar, or he'd be like a special consultant. So he's in some episodes, sometimes he isn't. I mean, you could see his fit would be super easy just because of the way Deep Space Nine was created as a show.
Yeah, I could see it, and I can actually see him kind of being an in and out character, kind of how Guinan was. Not in every episode, but just playing
Right.
certain key moments and being there for certain moments. I can also see him being a very suspicious guy. Like, I don't trust that fellow, Odo. You know. So yeah, it could be a whole lot of that. But but I do think that it's great that Star Trek brings in their original cast and older characters, and always tries to integrate them into whatever's happening at the time, and so that way they do a really good job of paying homage to the actors that helped build this franchise.
Hmm. So I got the information on James Doohan, and I didn't want to misspeak, so I kind of held my tongue just in case I was wrong. But yeah, here's the information. He served as a lieutenant in the Canadian Army, the Royal Canadian Artillery, during World War II. He participated in the D-Day landings at Juno Beach, so he was storming those
Yeah,
beaches, not at Normandy, but at Juno during D-Day on June 6th. During the invasion, he was shot multiple times. Turns out it was 6 times, including, and here's the crazy part, including a bullet in his chest that was deflected by a silver cigarette case. So that silver cigarette case theoretically saved his life because the bullet deflected from there. Anyway, yeah, so
well,
really amazing stuff. He trained as a pilot and became known as the craziest pilot in the Canadian Air Force. And there's all kinds of stories about this guy. What a cool guy.
yeah. So his real life is just as interesting as Scotty's. It's
Yep.
pretty amazing. Which is why he brings so much gravitas to that character, and he has so much life experience to lend to
Hmm.
his performances. Yeah,
Oh,
I
and
mean,
also, sorry, just the last part of that I wanted to touch on because it's important. Also, during that time, he shot 2 German snipers, and led his men to safety through a minefield. So, superstar, badass.
Damn. Damn. And then when he was getting the quarters, and there was like a cadet or somebody that was kind of helping him get the quarters, he's like, "This is huge." An admiral didn't get quarters this big. That cadet looked a lot like Mark Zuckerberg. I thought that
Yeah,
was
I know. I stopped. I was like, "Do we know this guy?"
funny. I was like, "Is Zuckerberg in an episode of Next Generation?"
Yeah, that kid's name was Kane, Ensign Kane. Actually, there were a lot of
Yeah.
people that got lines that we've never seen before. There was Ensign Kane in engineering. There was a lady named Bartell, and then in on the
On the
bridge,
bridge.
on the
Yeah.
bridge, they totally gave Ensign Gates the shaft, where it's like she's been there for 70 episodes, and the 1 week she calls out with another gig, they're like, "Oh, it's too bad you missed out because we had Ensign Rager here. Her name's Ensign Rager. She got a ton of lines. You should have been here this week. This was a good
I
week."
know. I know. There's a
She
lot
would
of
have got a
lines.
lot of money.
Yeah, I was like, how is this ensign getting all these lines? Because normally they get one line, like "I sir"
At
or
best, yeah.
something, like that. But she was like, just line after line. I was like, wait a minute, this girl's really getting her chance to showcase. So I guess they were trying to piss off the other person who wouldn't make it that day.
I wonder if it was meant for maybe like Michelle Forbes as Ensign Rowe, and maybe she wasn't available or something. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. It just seems like, yeah, there were 3 people that got a good amount of lines. And then I thought, well, hang on, maybe this is writing style. Writer Ronald D. Moore. I was like, okay, maybe that's his style. Maybe his style is like, let's add more characters in there. Maybe his style is sneak in a few lines for a few people so that if they do well, we bring them back. And then your crew is now, your world is now expanded a little bit. And Deep Space Nine did that better than anybody. You bring in somebody, you introduce something, and people go, "We liked him. Let's bring him back." But he's dead. Jeffrey Combs' character said, "Bring him back. We liked him."
It's another one. It's another Wayun.
It's a duplicate. It's fine. It's a clone.
Totally different Wayun. So, yeah, there were also moments that I really enjoyed about this episode. I'll tell you, one of them was when Scotty was telling Geordi, "Don't tell him how long it really takes."
Yeah.
And Geordi, he's like, "How long did it really take?" And he's like, "An hour." What do you mean? Like,
It was such a good. Well, he's like, "An hour."
That moment had me laughing. I thought that was really good. And really the highlight of this episode, because the highlight of this episode is about an aging human being. It's the story of what happens to all of us if we are fortunate enough to get to a point where we can retire, where we have reached a full state of maturity, and we are in these entering the elderly phase of life. And what I liked about this episode was addressing the usefulness of old people.
Yes.
And I think that was the core message behind this, right? It was like, what is the usefulness of somebody that is, he mentioned, I've been doing this 52 years, but now things have moved on, technology's moved on. And does that make you irrelevant? And what this episode was highlighting is that just because the technology's changed, just because the devices are different, there are core fundamental things that a person's lived experience can bring and have value to any situation. And I thought that was well articulated in this episode, especially during the conversation between Geordi and Scotty when he was talking about nobody wants this old ship. Who would even want this?
That was perfect.
And Geordi,
All the subtext.
The subtext there, that Geordi was bigging him up and kind of building up his confidence and saying, "No, there's value here. I just don't think you're seeing it." And the way they were describing the ship was also the way they were describing Scotty's own life. So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, you used the exact word I wanted to bring up, which was value and worth. Because we're in a society where we're trying our hardest to say everybody, has the same value. Everybody's equal. Everybody has the same worth. But we don't say, well, until they get old and weird and smell like dust and mothballs or whatever. No, like, but sometimes we kind of treat people that way. And, and an episode like this reminds us that, like, we doesn't matter how old a person gets, they don't lose their value. They don't lose their worth. They're still just as important as anybody else. And they usually have way more important information than the rest of us, even if the rest of us have to show them how to use an iPhone or have to show them how to log onto the internet for the 50th time. Like, they're still people with feelings. They're still people with memories and with wisdom, and there's definitely a big conversation to be had there. And I'm glad Star Trek brought that up. And yeah, the line where Geordi says, like, that's where the episode kind of turns around, where Geordi says, well, just because that ship is old doesn't mean that we have to throw it away. And Scotty's like, yeah. Yeah, and right then you're just like, these two little buddies. This is going to be the cutest episode ever. Two other really cute moments when Picard has his moment with Scotty, and he slams it, and he's like, Aldebaran whiskey. Who do you think gave it to Guinan? And he slammed it, and it was so cool. And then Scotty's like, all right, I got a drinking buddy. And they have another one, And before that, Scotty's toasting, the crew of his original Enterprise. He's like, here's to you, lads. But that moment with Picard and Scotty was just really sweet. It was Picard came in to pay his respects and to check in on him and to say, look, you're still worth something. We respect the hell out of you. And the other really cute moment was at the very end, where what does Scotty and Geordi say to each other? Oh, Scotty says, a ship is only as good as its engineer, and the Enterprise is in good hands. And Geordi flashes that $1 million Colgate smile, and they shake hands. And I'm like, you guys. So good.
Yeah, and another great moment was when Scotty says to Geordi, now you go ahead and take the helm. And he says, but you outrank me. And he says, just because I'm a rank a captain doesn't mean all I've ever wanted to be was an engineer.
Right.
Great line, great moment there. And you see Geordi's accepting it because he wants to only be an engineer. He doesn't, even if he's captain, in his heart, he's an engineer. And so I thought that was a great moment between the two of them. And another to add on top of that and pile on this heap of praise, I liked when Picard calls Geordi into the office and says, I'm not giving you an order, but I'm asking you, can you make this guy feel useful? Can you give him something to do that's in his wheelhouse that will open him up and make him feel invigorated again? And
ask him to build a bird cage. Be like, I really need a bird cage, Scotty. Can you be like, yeah, I can build you the best bird cage.
Yeah, but I thought that was a great moment. That showed leadership to me on the captain's part to be able to nudge his young Geordi to say, hey, this is the right thing to do. I know he's annoying you. I know you can't wait. You want to avoid him. But actually, I want you to do the opposite. I want you to go towards him and confront him as opposed to try to get away from him. I thought that showed courage and leadership on the captain's part. Very touching episode for me, all around. I loved it. Even when he had the moment when he was on the ship and he had the bottle in his hand and he goes up and he says, the young android at the bar told me that I can see my ship in here. You know what I mean?
He's having a conversation with the computer. Yeah.
The way he was talking.
No bloody A, B, no A, B, C, or D. No bloody A, B, C, or D. That's like one of the most famous lines in Star Trek. No bloody A, B, C, or D.
Yes. And so he says, show me my ship, you chattering piece of he was cussing out Majel, and I thought too.
I thought that was cute too when you realize who's on the other side of that voice. One thing that was mentioned in the episode, and you mentioned it a little bit ago, about how Scotty was like, not even admirals had a quarters this good. And it does remind you that even like people that are let's say, poor in the US or poor around the country or the working class, the fact that they have a cell phone that has all of the information in the history of the world basically in it or accessible to it already means that you have more than the richest and most powerful people 25 years ago, as far as access to information or convenience of information and things like that. So we forget that kind of perspective of like, wow, how much things are actually improving so quickly that, yeah, you and I have stuff that 100 years ago, kings and queens and presidents and prime ministers would only dream of having. And for us, we're like, oh yeah, I just,
You
look
mean
at,
my toilet?
you look at, yeah, I was going to say, we look at pictures on Instagram on the toilet, and they're like, oh my God, you're so lucky. But anyway, it's just a good reminder. So for him, 75 years going by, he's in a different world completely.
Yeah, I mean, and wasn't there a movie like that? What movie was it where they unfollowed the guy out?
Oh,
Remember, it was
Encino
like
Man?
Caveman,
Encino
Encino
Man.
Man. Yeah,
Took place in
Encino Man was
Encino,
one of those, and there was another one too. I thought it was Demolition Man or one of those kind of movies.
Yes. Demolition with Sylvester Stallone. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't remember if they thought him out or how it happened, but yeah,
Well, however, yeah,
when he was like
yeah.
cussing to get, and he was getting those tickets to wipe his butt, he's like, I'm gonna go use the John, and he goes, now he doesn't know how to use the three shells. Tee. That was a
So,
90s movie for sure.
yeah. So this idea was coming out at or around that time in several forms of fashion, where somebody gets pulled out of a hibernation and some to some degree or another, and has to observe the world in which they live in and see the differences. But look, I thought this was it was just a genuinely good episode. It was charming. It was, and you know what? This could have been. I was thinking a two-parter. This
Yeah.
could have easily been a two-parter.
Spock got
Because
one.
they were trapped in the thing, so now you have that dilemma. If they wanted to stretch out this whole Dyson sphere, thing, which, by the way, give it up to Mike Dyson for coming up with that.
Well,
But
did you see on the one side of the sphere there was actually a big tattoo? So that's pretty cool.
yeah,
But that was a good pun though, Straw. Good wordplay. But also, very importantly, it's time for the home run of the episode. Everybody, what do you think, Sirach? Who gets the home run of today's episode?
well, thanks to Kerry Schwent for the home run ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say the home run goes. You know, it, it's a two-part home run. The two-parter is the obvious pick for me is James Doohan
Mm-hmm.
coming in and guest starring and carrying the bulk of this episode, applying his charm and his style onto this show. Loved it. But the under kind of represented home run hitter guy is Ron Moore. I feel like this is a Ron Moore episode that's on par with the kind of great episodes that I'm used to seeing from him. I know I gave him flack for the last episode that we saw of his, and you looked forward to this and a couple of others, and you said, yeah, wait till these other ones come up. They're going to be good. And you were right. This is a great Ron Moore episode. So I think he also deserves some home run attention.
Inside the park homer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of him too because they usually would bring him on as the writer for Klingon episodes. He was kind of like the Klingon guy for like the longest time. And I didn't really remember him as being a writer for these more heartfelt episodes of like the theme of like, hey, don't let older people feel unloved or unrespected, or undervalued, you know, and so I thought about that. I was like, oh, that doesn't, I don't know if that fully fits with Ronald D. Moore. I'm sure it does if I look over his entire body of work. But before that, thought of him as the guy that writes the Klingon episodes on TNG and then does a bunch of cool war stuff with the Dominion and whatever on Deep Space Nine. But anyway, beyond all that, for me, the home run goes to James Doohan, of course, pretty easy, you know, for me. Although Ensign Rager got at least a double. Ensign Rager, just for the name alone.
I mean, Rager, yeah. I had to rewind the name because I did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Was that Rager?
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, what did she do to deserve that name? Something pretty cool. All right. Also, we'd like to give some very special thanks to other cool people. Their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Mohammed Noor Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Matt Boardman, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, we might be seeing him in Vegas, Henry Unger, Allison, Leach Hyde, Julie Manasvi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom, Cassandra Gerard, Chuck A., Chris Garris, James Kerwin, and of course, Jason M. Oken. And a very special thanks to our buddy Robert Kaiser for sponsoring this episode. Stick around, everybody. We've got the free-for-all up next. We will be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Loft, and it is time for the free-for-all with Melissa Longo and her pink headphones.
Hey!
Jason Oken left his Spock headphones at home.
I did.
Eve England is out in Wales, staying up late. Chuck A's got a bunch of plates to sell you. TJ Jackson Bay is from the School of Metaphysics. Allison Leach Hyde is in the heart of New Mexico. No, she is the heart of New Mexico.
I thought you were reading her shirt. No.
Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, is in between a Cubs game and an AJR concert. She knows how to live. Faith Howell's on the bridge in the Enterprise D with a Radical Seventh Rule shirt. And Chris McGee got his Seventh Rule shirt from Walking Art made by Melissa. All right, everybody. Jake Cisco guesses the IMDb score. It's going to be pretty low because he did not like this one.
I'm going to say this one was probably like an 8.2.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
8.7.
That's a pretty
9.2.
It's a pretty good guess. I think Sirach, the IMDb is probably right around there. 8.1, 8.2, 8.1.
8.3.
8.3. I see. All right. Well, the correct answer is 8.5.
Oh,
8.5. You guys were all around it. Very nice. I got 3 non-appearance mentions, but there may have been more because I've been known to miss things from time to time. I got Kirk. No, sorry, that was the previous week. I got Guinan. No, there was Kirk. Guinan, and Leah Brahms. Kirk, Guinan, and I need to reorganize my names. Oh, who's the other one?
There was also Ilan, the dolman of Alas.
Whoa, I totally missed that.
Well, I'll throw something else out there, which is kind of more vague. When Scotty drinks to everybody on the Enterprise.
He says lads.
Yeah.
He says lads. So
and I'm going to throw another one in there because he does say the doctors here are prettier than. So that's
yeah.
Bones.
Wow, you guys.
That is an amp for Bones.
I mean, but I
Wouldn't
also
that count for Mbenga too?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And Dr. Phil.
Yeah, not Dr. Phil. What's his name?
I know. I always call him Dr. Phil because that's his first name. His first name is Phillips.
Oh, you're talking about Phlox?
No.
No, who's the guy that was in the cage? Well, no, but Scotty wasn't in the cage, so he wouldn't know.
No.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's still a non-appearance mention. Right? I don't know.
Maybe. But I do think that Jason makes a compelling argument because he says lads, so he's certainly talking to them. So we'll just say the whole crew. Good stuff. All right. What about some kind of or some sorts of Dark Lord?
Well, we did indeed get two of them, almost back to back even. Geordie, while searching for the Enterprise with Scotty.
I got 3 as well.
Oh,
But let's see the ones Chris caught. I want to see which ones you caught.
While Geordie and Scotty were searching for the Enterprise, he says it looks like some kind of doorway, and then just a couple lines later says this looks like some kind of communications array. So what did I miss?
Data.
Tractor beam. They got some kind of tractor beam. I think we're getting pulled in by some kind of tractor beam.
Wow, very nice. What do you think, Homer?
And I thought of you, Chris, when I heard it. I was like, this is.
I thought it was some type of, but maybe that qualifies too.
I mean, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Man, free-for-alls are starting off raging today. This is good stuff.
Well, we did have Ensign
Rager.
So.
Yeah, this is good. This one's a rager.
Ensign Rager.
Melissa, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this episode?
Well, I wanted to give this episode a hug. Specifically, Scotty. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to hug him and say it's going to be okay. I can't imagine what it would be like to show up 75, almost 80 years later in a completely different time. And no wonder he would, of course, he would want to recapture or try to hold on to what he remembers, because what a culture shock. I mean, that's a huge culture shock, and he takes it in stride. Yeah, it was great. And I will say that I got a little bit miffed with Geordie when he was saying, Scotty, leave me alone, basically. I got a little miffed with him. I was like, Geordie. But then I was like, Geordie's human, and maybe he's not having the best day. So,
Aww.
But yeah, but I particularly liked the scene between Picard and Scotty on the bridge of the NX-01, no bloody A, no bloody B, no bloody C. It's my favorite line. That was just wonderful. I thought Picard was very sensitive to who Scotty was, and there was a reverence. I tell you, Picard is winning me over more and more and more as the series goes on. I think he's a wonderful captain. I think he's always trying to do the best by his crew and the people that he interacts with. I think he loves being in Starfleet, and he takes his job very seriously. And I love that. And I have to throw out one nitpick, and I'll save the rest for things left unsaid. I think it would have been more appropriate to have Deanna Troi show Scotty to his quarters rather than some rando, because I mean, he's been dropped into a whole new century, and who better to help him through that than I mean, he doesn't look a day over 147. I mean, yeah. And then, and I think it, again, does a disservice to Troy when the ensign on the bridge gets more lines in an episode than she
Totally. Good stuff. Thanks very much, Melissa Longo. Sirach said the same thing about where's Troy in this? Very
Yeah.
good. Oh, look at that. He's clapping for you too. Good stuff. Jason M. Oken was also livid about that ensign getting way too many lines. What do you think of this episode?
I was livid, absolutely. I've been livid for 30 years. It's bothered me. I've always had a fondness for this one. It's a wonderful episode. I think, Jimmy Doohan had to wait for 25 years to actually get a show. This is probably the best material he's gotten as Scotty, no question. I don't think anything even comes close. And he's really, really good in this. You can actually see that the men can act, because they really, would have, you had used Scotty for comic relief a lot, or just really sort of bits and pieces in the original series. So this really, gives him a place to shine. I think some people may have been disappointed at the time because I guess the stakes in the episode aren't that great. This is not sort of this booming big episode, but it's a wonderful, wonderful episode. As Melissa said, it's sort of, you want to give it a hug. I think, certainly having the episode feature LeVar was great. They both work well together, and it's sort of a slow burn as Geordi gets more and more and more sort of upset as Scotty kind of goes from place to place to place. I mean, that was just wonderful. And sort of to go back to Troy, it's no secret there's a scene with Troy and Scotty that was cut from the episode. That encounter did not go over too well. He actually gets very, very angry, and that's when he shows up afterwards in 10 Forward, going for his scotch, not being all that happy. And again, one of the things that really works well here, and you have the ticking clock, you have some sort of jeopardy, you have character, and then you have humor that's not forced. It's really kind of organic. There's just a nice balance of everything. You have these organic callbacks to the original series. I think, Ron Moore's script really is, you can see the love for the series coming out of there. And it's just, the whole aura of this. And, this was, I think, the first time they had rebuilt at least part of the wedge of the original Enterprise, and a lot of people would show up for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the visual they used from this side of Paradise, the actual sort of wide shot that they used for the blue screen. I guess it was blue screen at the time to show that. But the wedge was, people showed up and looked at it. I mean, it was rebuilt since, but this was sort of the first attempt to do something like that. And it was wonderful. And that scene, certainly with Patrick Stewart, all of that, and callbacks to this is green. It's green. I mean, it's, if you've seen the original series, a lot of it just, and again, it's subtle enough that if you haven't watched it, you're not going to kind of get thrown off by that. But if you know what it is, it brings a smile to your face. So I think it ages just like wine, gets better every year.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. Well, Eve England is out in Wales. Remember, Jason started off in the first season saying this episode wasn't very good, quite frankly. And then it turns out he was right. These are good episodes. Eve England said the same early on. What do you think of these episodes? What do you think of this one?
Yeah, this is nice. I think I completely agree with everything that Melissa said. They're the things that sort of struck me. I did get this. I think I became quite frustrated that it wasn't
Eve,
more
you have
about,
some kind of echo in your audio. Maybe you have two things on at the same time. We want to make sure we catch what you hear. We'll skip you for a second and jump to Chuck A, but check your audio real quick. Thank you. Chuck A is the TNG fanatic. What do you think of this one?
Really one of my favorite episodes. Couple of my favorite scenes was, of course, when Scotty says, no bloody A, B, C, and D, and he actually is talking to Majel on the computer, like sort of talking to Christine Chapel. Two different things that are really stand out for me. There was a continuity error, which I won't go into because it'll be a spoiler, between Relics and Star Trek Generations. You can read about it if you want to see, but it's a pretty good continuity error. The other thing, back in 2003, I was at the Creation Convention in Sacramento, and Jimmy Doohan and LeVar Burton were sitting next to each other signing. And I had a gentleman come to my table looking at the Relics plate. And I suggested to him that, hey, they're both sitting over there. go and have him sign it. So he bought the plate, went over and had him sign it, and then showed it to me. It was just wonderful. He was like real happy that he decided to go and get their signatures. Jimmy Doohan passed away a couple years later, so he had a real great collectible there. The other thing, it was the final scene at the shuttle bay where he's given the shuttle, having the whole crew there, and everybody congratulated him and told him be safe and such. And his reaction with Worf's reaction to him was just hilarious. Everybody else shook his hand or kissed him, and Worf didn't, of course, give any reaction. And Jason mentioned It's Green that was from By Any Other Name, original series episode, and then the Elan of Troyes and Wolf in the Fold with Argelius, all original series mentions. Yeah, one of my favorite episodes. Really fantastic.
Good stuff. Thanks very much, Chuck A. What about you, TJ Jackson Bay? Do you like this episode? And if so, why?
I very much enjoyed this episode. Like Melissa, I kind of had the hug vibes, but since I couldn't hug Scotty, I had to hug this awesome pillow from Melissa. If you can see it, there it goes. It keeps disappearing. But this is Walking Art made by Melissa, and it gets all the hugs. I also really enjoyed the scene in the holodeck, and I can't remember who mentioned it. I think it was Bubbles, but we really did get to see. We really did get to see, Mr. Doohan perform, and as I was watching it earlier today, I was watching his performance and seeing the emotional journey that he goes through. He comes out and he's just ready to get at it, and then he gets to feeling like he doesn't fit. And so that's why I really enjoyed the scene in the holodeck, because I think that's where, that turns around. He gets a little bit inebriated, which was fun because, and again, also very good acting, because I really felt that, he's sharing his feelings. He's just kind of in it. And I felt it with him, as he's going through that and he's feeling like he doesn't fit. He says, as they're getting ready to walk out or having that conversation, this was my home. This is where I had a purpose. And I really appreciate, Captain Picard, being very attentive to what's happening. And so, when he goes to give LaForce the assignment, he says one of the most important things in a person's life is to feel useful. And I believe that is true. And that's when we see, Geordi kind of shift and turn around and say, and start to, kind of open up to Scotty, where before, he was shutting him out and saying, get out of the way. To Geordi's credit, he was under a time crunch. The captain's wanting this thing done and he's trying to get it done. But, come on. I also understand how Melissa felt. Jason, Bubbles mentioned that the stakes weren't, in case somebody was wondering who Bubbles is, it's Jason. The stakes aren't high, but I actually enjoyed that feature of this episode because it gave me, the opportunity to really key into Mr. Doohan, acting and going through that journey without, being distracted by stuff blowing up or are they going to survive or any of that jazz. Although, they kind of had, some stakes, getting pulled into the sphere. I got some questions about that later on, by the way. But all in all, I really, really enjoyed this episode and watching that journey of, him. Obviously, if things had been different, he probably would have just taken that shuttle and said, yeah, I'm going to, the Norpin colony, whatever. It's time to settle down. I'm not useful anymore. But I really appreciate, Picard's sentiment too, that, hey, this is one of us. We stand on his shoulders, as Starfleet officers today. he's the foundation of Starfleet. That we wouldn't know. He's basically, we come from him. We come from the work that he put in, and we need to honor that and make him feel a part of, because he's one of us, and we're not going to leave him out. I really appreciate that sentiment. I'll have more later, but I really enjoyed this episode. Hugs. People
Great
can
stuff.
get hugs in Vegas. Come see us
in person. Thanks very much, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, or in person. Eve England, let's give it a shot. What do you say?
Yeah, is it working now?
All better. You got it. Thank you.
I don't know what's wrong. Yeah, I think I was frustrated that there wasn't more about sort of how he was dealing with everything, and again, not having Troy as a sort of integral part of the episode. But then at the same time, I kind of just tried to ignore that and thought, no, this is a fan tribute. This is just all about the nostalgia. So I kind of just try to embrace it for what they were trying to do, and have this sort of legacy character come on board. And I thought the interactions were great. Again, similarly with in terms of that, how Geordi reacted, I was kind of, that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable for why I think they could have made that a little bit shorter, because I was like, oh, that just feels a bit rude, and this guy's had a lot of big shock to his system, and he's just being dismissed offhand like that. So I thought it was really interesting that Picard was the character who really sort of dealt with what he was going through, and I thought that came across really well. And again, really surprised me that it was Picard who sort of took that role. So that was really refreshing to see, and how far he's come. I did like the fact that it was all about relics. You had all the different ships. You had Scotty, and you had relics from the past of the show. And I thought that was a really clever use of the title. But I think my biggest disappointment, I think, that there wasn't more of that Dyson sphere. I was like, that is so cool, and it felt to me that should have had its own episode. So I'd have liked to have seen them use a different, I don't know, reason for that sort of the danger and the climax at the end of the episode, and they'd use that for something else, because that to me was really interesting. And I think there's certainly could have been another episode with the Dyson sphere for sure.
Also, something similar to what Sirach said. He said this could have been a two-parter, really kind of fill it out a bit more. Thanks very much, Eve England out in Wales. Allison Leach Hyde is in New Mexico, probably. What'd you think of this one?
Well, I've always loved this episode because Geordi is my favorite Next Gen character, and Scotty is my number 2 favorite original series. Bones wins out because he's snarky. So, but I love this episode because we actually get to see Scotty's personality and not just kind of like be either the savior of the ship or the comic relief. Like that's all he played. It felt like a lot in the original series, but he got to have like this whole growth and character arc. We got to see that, yes, the man likes to drink. Yes, he is a shameless flirt. But mostly he loves to tinker and make things work when they shouldn't. And I thought that was wonderful that they brought that on, and that he's such a sweetheart. The line that gets me is when Geordi says he's brilliant for, doing the diagnostic to keep his pattern from disintegrating. He goes, I was only 50% brilliant. And I'm like, oh, that's heart-wrenching. I'm like, but that's Scotty. That's who he is. And I thought that was a lovely way of just expressing this character who many of us have grown up with our entire lives. So really, really love that we get to like flesh out Scotty's character, because, we didn't really get to do that in the original series. And we got a little bit more in the movies, but again, more for comic relief, One of my favorite comic reliefs of his is in the one with the whales with the mouse. That still makes me laugh every time I watch the movie. But we got to see different sides of Scotty. The scene with him and Picard, like everyone has said, is just beautiful. They had wanted to have him interact with original series characters from the original series, like we did in Deep Space Nine, but they hadn't figured it out yet. So that's why it's in the books, the novelization of it, but not in the episode. Would have been cool. I now have personal headcanon of why Scotty looks at Worf with like those big eyes, not just because he's a Klingon, but because he's seen him before. It's like, what? but Worf wouldn't have known that yet. So he's just like, I'm gonna like just give this man some space. So that's my personal headcanon for why Worf was kind of like, I'll give you space. You reacted to me really funny, so I'm gonna stay back over here. So I love it. And when right in the beginning, when the transporter sound goes off and you get the original series transporter sound, you're like, oh, that we're getting an original character. The first time I watched it, I'm like, oh yes. And that is the original sound. Dan Curry went and found it because he used to work for that production company. He knew they had it in a box somewhere. So he went. So like that was like my favorite little like fan service right there. So I could gush about what I love about this episode for a long time. I too am very annoyed about Troy not getting to do her job and us seeing it. So, but other than that, I do enjoy this episode a lot.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Yeah, definitely the transporter sound and then the sound when they walk onto the bridge was just amazing. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, living it up. How did you find the time to watch this episode, and what did you think of it?
Well, watched the episode a couple times earlier in the week. That's just sort of the way I prep for it. But yeah, I was so glad to be able to fit this in because I love this episode so much. I appreciate it, I think, even more now because we have been going through all the TOS episodes. So I actually get all of the little in jokes that are peppered throughout the episode. And I never really did before. So I love that so much. And I love that it was written by someone who is a fan of the original series. I can't remember who was supposed to write it, but they knew that there was a different script that they wanted to write, so they gave it to Ron Moore, who was a major fan, and it absolutely shows. The whole episode is almost like a little bit of a love letter to it. I think I loved their interactions. Although when Geordi is snippy with him, and it actually kind of reminded me of Luke and Yoda's initial meeting in The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda's messing with all of Luke's stuff at his little makeshift campsite there. Just makes me smile. And Allison, I actually have an additional potential headcanon for the looks that Scotty gives Worf, because he sees Worf and he remembers, oh yeah, I sent them all those tribbles. I immediately thought of that in the interactions, like, oh yeah, he sent them all those tribbles. He probably wonders if Worf knows that he sent all those tribbles. And something else occurred to me in relation to that is in the Tribbles episode, all Scotty wants to do is hang out on the Enterprise and read his technical manuals. But when Picard mentions it, he's like, I don't need to read those anymore. So clearly he has moved on to an equally fun hobby, since technical manuals apparently don't do it for him anymore. But yeah, Picard made me smile. He was wonderful with both Geordi and with Scotty in his scenes with both of them. And it is absolutely clear that Picard grew up on a vineyard and has a very good alcohol tolerance. The way he just knocked that Aldebaran whiskey back like it was green Hawaiian punch. I mean, just knocked it back. Absolutely made me smile. And every now and then, for other things come up, and I hear Scotty say, "No bloody A, B, C, or D." That will always make me smile. I've got something kind of fun and interesting about James Doohan's final acting role before he stopped acting. I'll save that for things left unsaid because it's interesting. But I did obviously make the limerick for the episode about Scotty, so it's his POV. Now, old does not have to mean obsolete. When needed, I can still think on my feet. Was about to retire. There's new fuel in my fire. I now have new adventures to seek.
Nice. And his shuttle. That'll be fun. Thanks very much, Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. Faith Howell, what's up? Cool shirt. What'd you think of this one?
I mean, what's not to love? seriously, anytime we get Scotty or any of our, legacy characters, when they come back, it's a special moment. Right. So, as you guys have all said, that was really the main draw for this episode, was getting to see Scotty again. But I love that they didn't stop there. It wasn't just a fluff piece with Scotty inserted. We got some real sci-fi substance in this episode. That Dyson sphere really, like, that's something that I can sit and ponder on for hours. Like, how would you make something like that? It, would really benefit, humanity, because it would be the entire orbit, not just in a circle, but like 360. So it would be exponential how much space and farmable land that we would have for people. But also, wouldn't that require way more materials than we have in the solar system? So, I could go down a rabbit hole here. I also, kind of the same thing with that whole transporter issue. Like, that's super cool. And we get a little taste of that in Strange New Worlds as well, with I think Mbenga fighting the Klingons, where they're putting people in stasis, basically. That's pretty cool and pretty ingenious. And I love that is something like that is 100% Scotty's wheelhouse, right? Like, that totally makes sense, not forced at all. And then, as you guys said, I didn't realize that this was written by a fan writer, or, somebody that had a deep love for Trek, but now I definitely can see it. And I just want to do a shout out on that point to Aaron Waltke, because that is why I love all of his stuff. And please, can we have him back for anything ever? All the things. Let him be a showrunner. Like, let's just do it. So I did come prepared with my own beverage. So let's raise one, if you've got one, to Scotty and all of our wonderful Trek actors and team and behind the scenes and everybody that makes the show amazing. So
absolutely. Thanks very much, Faith Howell on the bridge of the Enterprise D. The Dark Lord, Chris McGee. What say you?
I say, what a fantastic episode. I mean, not only do we get to see Geordi do his troubleshooting thing that we all love, but he gets to do it alongside the greatest engineer Starfleet has ever known. And watching Scotty teach Geordi the tricks of the trade, so to speak, such as how to get captains to think of you as a miracle worker, or to always be a wee bit conservative on paper, is an absolute thrill. I remember one of the funny criticisms circulating at the time of this episode was, whenever the show's ratings start to fall, they bring back an original cast member to help boost them. Whether that was true or not, I don't care. I'm just happy they did. But everyone's already mentioned most, if not all, of the delightful callbacks to the original series. Allison, for example, mentioned the original series transporter sound effect. All the stories that Scotty told, like from Alana Troyes, Wolf in the Fold, and even The Naked Time, having to come up with a whole new cold start routine. And of course, It Is Green. Everyone's mentioned that from By Any Other Name. And of course, the biggest standout callback moment, the holodeck doors opening up and Scotty stepping out onto the original series bridge, which everyone just, me included, just teared up over. Also, others mentioned in that cargo bay scene with Scotty and Worf just kind of looking at each other rather than exchanging farewells. Also, it's the only scene in which Marina Sirtis appears, and I think anyway, and she only has one line, which is consisting of only one word, even goodbye. It's kind of a shame. And of course, we do get an Ensign J sighting at the Environment Rear Station next to Riker. Yay. Oh boy, the memorable quote of the episode. I mean, wow, was this one difficult, just paring it down to my short list of 5, let alone ranking them. But since my top choice has already been mentioned a few times, I'll go with my second choice. And that's Geordi saying, just because something's old doesn't mean you throw it away.
Mm-hmm. Was number 1 It's Green?
Actually, no, it was no bloody A, B, C, or D.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris McGee. Excellent. Jake's final take. Cirroc Lofton, any final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, there was a few moments that I thought were really good from James Doohan's performance. One of them was when he was in the sick bay and he said, "Engineering, I thought you'd never ask." And
Oh, yeah.
he got up so happy. And then when they kind of said, "No, we're good," the look on his face of disappointment was also well played as an actor. I thought he really wore that well in his body language and his facial expression. So kudos to him on that. Um, kind of want to double back on the Dyson sphere that Faith was talking about. What I would have liked a little bit of background information is like what civilization or a race of people is able to construct that, and that would lead us to some really high advanced peoples, right? And so I thought that's kind of a curiosity that I didn't see followed up on in the episode. The other thing is, I thought another great moment performance wise when James Doohan was in that craft, the Janolan with Geordi, and he gives him the convincing speech like I've been asked to do crazy my whole life, and you got to, I can do this, and he really sells Geordi on his life experience, on what he's been asked to do, and you can see the genuine like you got to trust me type of expression in his face, and I thought that was another great performance by James Doohan, really conveying a lifetime worth of feelings and emotions in that one kind of exchange. That was really spectacular. Another moment I liked is the look of disgust when he heard about synthahol. Synthahol.
What in blazes is this?
Yeah. Like he would not let fentanyl pass. That's for sure. Fentanyl. Oh, what is this? So yeah, he does not like artificial things. You can tell that, and so I love the way he reacted in that moment. And then I guess one of the things I also want to say was that I agree that Picard, when he's written like this, really comes across as a good leader. When he leads with compassion, when he's thoughtful, and he worries about people's feelings. The moment when he tells Geordi, he's like, it's not an order, but I'm asking you to do this. And that is good leadership. That is what a good captain does. And I like that about how they're writing for him as of late. And he's definitely matured and showed incredible leaps in as far as how I perceive him and his leadership as a captain. So I enjoy watching that because I think it's important to have the leader of your show and the star of your show be somebody that we admire and is thoughtful and compassionate and not short-tempered and irritated all the time. So kudos to the writers for fixing that. And then the last thing I'll say is when Geordi is walking Doohan, Scotty into the turbo lift, and he's like, "Man, I can't believe all of this stuff." And then Geordi says to him, "Wait till you see the holodeck." and I was like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, what program you right?
Holodeck 4.
Yeah, why are you so excited over there, Geordi? Calm down. So yeah, that was kind of funny to me too. So yeah, this was just really a nice, lovable moment. The only germaphobe in me was thinking when Scotty offered that drink to Captain Picard, I was like,
yeah, and then
you've been drinking out of, right? I mean, like,
I know. Yes.
Sorry,
I
that's
thought
just
the
like
same thing.
yeah.
That's just the germaphobe in me. But he couldn't have been walking down carrying 2 glasses in the beginning, so that wouldn't even make sense. So, but definitely like this episode. I definitely love the performance. I like the fact that Scotty got a chance to have an episode that's that, you know, gives him a chance to shine, and also that Geordi gets an episode, you know, where he got a chance, because he rarely gets featured. So, you know, this was good for me. Everybody mentioned the Deanna Troi thing, and I thought, you know, Deanna Troi or Guinan would be the best people. If I was unfrozen from 75 years, I would want Guinan or Troy to walk me through coming back into the, you know, the time period that I'm in. I definitely don't want Worf.
And Geordi's too busy.
Geordi's too busy. Data would actually be a good friend
Data's
too.
the one,
I think I think Data would be great too. But yeah, so this is a great episode. I enjoyed it a lot. Relics is good.
It's a good one. Everybody's happy here.
And we didn't say anything about Alexander Singer, who directed this, but I also think that he did a good job. I don't remember seeing Alexander Singer's name that much in the credits. I don't know how many episodes.
I think it's his first.
Pretty rare.
Okay. Yeah, so it was pretty good. Pretty good job.
Sounds like something to discuss in Things Left Unsaid. Everybody at home, if you have got to know more about Alexander Singer, stick around. If you're not a patron, become a patron. We really appreciate that. The Seventh Rule on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/The Seventh Rule. Thank you to Chris McGee, Faith Howell, Carrie Schwent, Allison Leach Hyde, TJ Jackson, Bayot, Missouri, Chuck A, Eve England, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. We really appreciate all of you, and we will see you soon. Until then, always remember the seventh rule and hug that pillow.